So now we're going to start to do some things backwards. Not literally, but we're going to talk about that reverse shoulder replacement. And again, the most common diagnosis that utilizes this type of implant is when you have a bad rotator cuff tear and arthritis. Sometimes, however, if you have just a bad rotator cuff tear and you can't lift your arm up, the surgeon might use this type of implant to help you get your arm over your head again. Sometimes if you have really bad arthritis and the bone is worn away significantly, we have an option with the reverse shoulder to help us rebuild that bone. So we're going to talk about both types of approaches today, but the first thing we're going to do here is the standard reverse shoulder replacement. So we'll start with the guide pin. And again, this is similar to the anatomic shoulder, but you can see these are round in nature because this is the shape of the actual reverse base plate. The base plate is the part that actually is placed on top of the socket here. And so we're also going to place a guide pin to help us through the surgery itself. And typically we put this below center. So we actually position the reverse shoulder base plate in a different spot on the socket than the anatomic. On the anatomic side, we want the guide pin fairly centered. Here we're going to go slightly inferior to center. And we're going to place this pin just below where the socket will, there we go. And we're going to drill that straight in. So here's our guide pin that's going to allow us to create the surface on the socket here. And unlike the anatomic shoulder where we have a slight curve that we could accommodate to, here we're going to ream this fairly flat. And so we have a circular reamer here. You can see the surface is relatively flat, and this will go over the guide pin. And we're going to start creating the shape. So again, we'll place a checker over this to make sure that we're flat on the surface, and this is actually looking pretty good. We'll try a little bit more reaming. Again, we want to get as much of the bone surface available for the implant to sit on, because that allows it to be stable. That actually is quite good. And just like in surgery, you can see we've created some little ridges on the bone here. So we're just going to clean those up. Kind of like a Hollywood makeup artist here, smoothing things out, taking all the wrinkles off. So that is now our flat surface. You can see there's a little bit of pink bone that you might be seeing on the bottom here. And that's actually something that we look for in surgery. It's not pink in surgery, but it would be a little blood tinged, and that tells us we're getting down to the level of bone that we're comfortable with in terms of showing the flat surface again. And we're going to carefully drill the center post, and this is the center of where that metal implant is going to go into. So we'll take out the guide pin first. And we have a large screw that's going to really secure the implant in place. So we're going to tap this down. It's nice and solid there. So we're going to drill the center screw hole. And then we'll measure. And so there are variable screw lengths, and we catch to where the bone is solid. And so this goes, we must have hit the target perfectly because this goes way into the bone. So we typically wouldn't put in something quite that long. But this gives us an idea of the screw length. And here's the actual implant. And so this screw is 6.5 millimeters in diameter. We have another one that's even larger. We call it, since we're in Minnesota, we call it the ice auger because it's quite large. But in this situation, this is almost the standard size screw that we use routinely. And you can see the back of the implant looks porous, almost like a sponge. And this is actually titanium. And so the hope is that over time, your bone will grow into this material to help stabilize the implant long term. And this screw is going to hold it in place in a solid form. So we're going to carefully thread the screw into the bone, and we have you can see how quickly it catches even in this sawbone material. I'm going to screw this down as tight as we can, getting it into the bone. Oh, that's nice and solid. And it does squeak like that in the operating room too. So we hear that, we know the screw is nice and tight. And there you have the base plate. And so this is what actually the ball, or what we call the glenosphere, will actually fit on top of this implant. Now, just for belts and suspenders here, we're also going to put in some additional screws. So each one of these little holes represents an area where an additional screw will be placed to provide further stability to the implant. Now, what's interesting, you see these little grommets that you have there on the top and bottom. These are what we call locking screws. They actually provide about 1.5 times the holding power of a standard screw, because there's actually threads that go into these little grommets. So for discussion purposes, we're going to put in a couple peripheral screws. We normally put in at least 2, ideally 3 to 4, depending on the type of implant and the bone quality. And so normally we would measure for those, but we're just going to utilize these, and these will actually thread in. Now, my assistant wanted me to work pretty hard today, so he actually is making me do this by hand. Normally we have this on a power drill. So there's one screw, and then the second one is placed on the bottom, and that provides excellent fixation stability for that implant. And finally, the ball, or what we call the glenosphere, will be impacted into place. And the inside of the sphere is slightly smaller than the outside perimeter of the base plate here. So we get a fairly tight fit just by impaction, but also there's a little screw in the center. And another engineering marvel, this screw will actually thread into the screw that we placed to fix the glenosphere, providing either further stability and fixation of the implant. So normally we put the glenosphere on top. That allows us to get that initial fit. And then we take that screw in the center, and that threads into that other screw, and that provides excellent fixation. Now we have our glenosphere. And this is what we'll eventually articulate with the plastic part that will be on the humeral side. So this is your standard reverse shoulder replacement. Now we're going to move on to the reverse shoulder arthroplasty humeral preparation. Most of the steps are actually quite similar to the anatomic stemmed preparation, so we've maintained the position of the stem that we placed in the previous anatomic model. The difference is now the socket will be placed where the humeral head once was. So just like in the anatomic model, we have variable sizes that we can trial with. This has some eccentricity. As you can see, the actual screw is off center. This allows us to get appropriate coverage and also tension. By rotating this in a different position, we can affect the tension of the muscles that will be providing the operational support for the implant. So we can secure this with a little tightening of that screw. And we also have multiple plastic trials. These come in different thicknesses, different sizes, different types of lips that give it more stability, and that would be placed on the implant as such. And so this is what we call a trial implant. During surgery, we can try different sizes and positions to make sure that before we put in the final implants that we like the construct that we have developed. So we're going to pop off these trials here. And this is what the final implant would look like. And these are actually 2 separate pieces typically. But again, you can see this is off-centered, an eccentric tray, and a polyethylene implant. This would be impacted into position during surgery. That holds it into the stem. And that is the humeral preparation for the reverse shoulder replacement.